The pine forests of southern New Jersey stretch for over 1 million acres, a vast wilderness of towering trees, mysterious bogs, and winding water. You stand on the edge of this primordial landscape as twilight descends, listening to the ancient sounds of the pine barrens, the rustle of wind through cedar branches, the distant call of nocturnal birds, and something else, a sound that makes your blood run cold and your rational mind search desperately for conventional explanations. It starts as a low wailing, almost like the cry of a lost child, but it grows in intensity and pitch until it becomes a shriek that seems to tear through the very fabric of the night. This is not. You have come to the Pine Barrens in search of America's oldest and most persistent cryptid, a creature that predates the founding of the United States itself and has survived every attempt at debunking, explanation, and official suppression. The Jersey Devil has been cited by thousands of witnesses, from colonial farmers to modern police officers, from skeptical scientists to terrified children. It has left physical evidence, been photographed and filmed, and has forced government agencies to acknowledge its existence while simultaneously working to cover up the truth about its origins and nature. But what is the Jersey Devil? Is it simply a misidentified animal, as skeptics claim? Is it a surviving prehistoric creature, as cryptozoologists suggest? Or is it something far stranger and more significant? A manifestation of forces that connect the spiritual traditions of the Lenape people to the darkest chapters of colonial American history, a living symbol of the price paid for the systematic destruction of indigenous cultures and the desecration of sacred lands? To understand the true nature of the Jersey Devil, we must journey beyond the comfortable realm of rational explanation into the shadows where folklore and documented fact intersect, where the ancient spiritual wisdom of Native Americans collides with the brutal realities of European colonization, where the suppressed history of the Pine Barrens reveals secrets that powerful interests have worked for centuries to keep hidden. Tonight, we unmask America's oldest cryptid and expose the conspiracy that has hidden its true origins. Tonight, we confront the Jersey Devil and the terrible history that created it. Chapter 1. The Leeds Point Birth. When a colonial curse came to life, the story of the Jersey Devil traditionally begins on a stormy night in 1735 in the desolate settlement of Leeds Point, deep in the Pine Barrens of southern New Jersey. Deborah Smith Leeds, known locally as Mother Leeds, was giving birth to her 13th child when something went terribly wrong. According to the most widely told version of the legend, Mother Leeds cursed the unborn child, declaring in her exhaustion and despair, "Let this one be a devil." The midwife who attended the birth was Jane Cox, a woman experienced in the difficult realities of colonial childbirth. According to her account, preserved in the records of the Burlington County Historical Society, the birth proceeded normally until the moment of delivery, when the infant emerged bearing characteristics that defied all natural explanation. The child possessed what Cox described as the face of a horse, the body of a man, and wings like those of a bat. Within minutes of its birth, the creature had grown to full size and sprouted additional features including a long, forked tail, cloven hooves, and glowing red eyes. According to Cox's testimony, the newborn monster immediately attacked and killed the midwife and several family members before flying up the chimney and disappearing into the Pine Barrens, where it would begin a reign of terror that continues to this day. However, the traditional account of the Jersey Devil's birth obscures the deeper historical and cultural realities that provide the true context for understanding this creature's origins. The Leeds family was not simply another colonial household, but rather a family whose patriarch, Daniel Leeds, had become one of the most controversial and despised figures in early New Jersey history through his involvement in activities that directly challenged both religious and civil authorities. Daniel Leeds was a Quaker who had fallen into disfavor with the Society of Friends due to his publication of almanacs containing astrological information, which the Quakers considered occult and blasphemous. His almanacs, published annually from 1687 to 1713, included detailed astrological charts, predictions based on celestial movements, and what his critics called devilish practices that violated Christian principles and community standards. The conflict between Leeds and the Quaker establishment intensified when he began incorporating explicitly anti-Quaker political commentary into his almanacs, challenging the society's authority and questioning their theological interpretations. His 1702 almanac included passages that Quaker leaders claimed were inspired by Satan himself, leading to his formal expulsion from the Society of Friends and his denunciation as a heretic and enemy of Christian civilization. Following his expulsion from the Quaker community, Daniel Leeds aligned himself with the Anglican Church and became an active supporter of British colonial policies that were deeply unpopular among the predominantly Quaker population of New Jersey. His political activities included informing on Quaker neighbors who violated British trade regulations and supporting Anglican efforts to suppress Quaker religious practices and political influence. The Leeds family's increasingly isolated position in colonial New Jersey society was compounded by Daniel's son Titan Leeds, who inherited both his father's almanac business and his reputation for occult practices and political disloyalty. Titan continued publishing controversial almanacs that included what critics called diabolic prophecies and satanic calculations designed to undermine community stability and Christian faith. The growing hostility toward the Leeds family reached its peak in the 1730s, when local communities began experiencing a series of mysterious events that were attributed to the family's alleged supernatural activities. Livestock deaths, crop failures, and unexplained phenomena in the Pine Barrens were increasingly blamed on the Leeds family's supposed pacts with evil forces, creating a climate of suspicion and fear that would provide the context for the legendary birth of 1735. Dr. William Nelson, the 19th-century historian who conducted the most comprehensive study of early New Jersey records, discovered evidence that the traditional story of Mother Leeds and the diabolic birth represented a folkloric interpretation of real events that were far more complex and historically significant than the simple curse narrative suggests. According to Nelson's research, the Leeds family had become associated with a network of individuals who maintained secret connections to pre-colonial spiritual practices and indigenous knowledge systems. The Pine Barrens region where the Leeds family lived had been sacred territory for the Lenape people for thousands of years before European colonization. The area contained numerous spiritual sites, including burial grounds, ceremonial locations, and places where the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds were considered particularly thin. The Lenape understood these locations as gateways where spiritual entities could manifest in the physical realm under appropriate ritual conditions. The Leeds family's involvement with these indigenous spiritual traditions appears to have begun with Daniel Leeds's interest in astrology and natural magic, which led him to seek knowledge from Lenape spiritual practitioners who possessed sophisticated understanding of seasonal cycles, celestial influences, and the spiritual forces that govern natural phenomena. This knowledge was incorporated into his almanacs, which served as vehicles for preserving and transmitting indigenous wisdom that colonial authorities were working to suppress. However, the Leeds family's appropriation of indigenous spiritual knowledge occurred without proper understanding of the cultural frameworks and ethical constraints that traditionally regulated such practices. The Lenape emphasized that spiritual power required careful balance and community oversight to prevent dangerous manifestations, warnings that the Leeds family apparently ignored in their pursuit of forbidden knowledge and supernatural influence. The consequences of this spiritual recklessness became apparent in the 1730s, when the Pine Barrens began experiencing phenomena that local Lenape described as evidence that protective spiritual boundaries had been violated. The manifestation of the creature later known as the Jersey Devil may have represented the result of European colonists attempting to manipulate indigenous spiritual forces without understanding the proper safeguards and community responsibilities that such practices required. The birth of 1735 at Leeds Point thus marked not the creation of a new supernatural entity, but rather the physical manifestation of spiritual imbalances that had been building for decades through the inappropriate use of indigenous knowledge by colonists who lacked the cultural wisdom necessary to handle such power safely. The Jersey Devil emerged as a consequence of what indigenous traditions would recognize as spiritual contamination caused by the violation of sacred protocols and the desecration of holy sites. The creature's immediate flight to the Pine Barrens following its birth reflected its connection to the ancient spiritual geography of the region, where it would find the environmental and supernatural conditions necessary for its continued existence. The Pine Barrens would serve not simply as a hiding place, but as a spiritual homeland where the Jersey Devil could draw upon the same indigenous forces that had originally enabled its manifestation. The Leeds Point birth thus represents the intersection of colonial oppression, indigenous spiritual traditions, and European occult practices that created conditions for one of America's most persistent and well-documented supernatural manifestations. The Jersey Devil emerged from the brutal collision between indigenous and European worldviews, serving as a living symbol of the spiritual consequences of cultural destruction and the inappropriate appropriation of sacred knowledge by those who lack the wisdom to use it responsibly. Chapter 2. The Lenape Prophecies. Ancient warnings of the flying serpent long before European colonists arrived in the Pine Barrens, long before the Leeds family built their settlement at the edge of the vast wilderness. The Lenape people possessed detailed spiritual traditions that warned of supernatural entities that could manifest when the sacred balance of their ancestral lands was disrupted by foreign invaders who possessed no understanding of the spiritual forces they were violating. The Lenape creation stories, preserved through oral tradition and recorded by early ethnographers like David Zeisberger and John Heckwelder, describe the Pine Barrens as one of the most spiritually significant locations in their vast territory, a place where Kishilmuking, the Great Spirit, had established permanent gateways between the physical world and the realm of supernatural beings. According to Dr. Herbert Kraft, who spent 40 years studying Lenape culture at Seton Hall University, the Pine Barrens held special significance as Popuessing, meaning the place of the dragon, or the dwelling of the great serpent. This designation reflected ancient knowledge about supernatural entities that dwelt in the region's vast wetlands and cedar forests, creatures that could take various forms, but were most commonly described as flying serpents with the ability to appear as winged humanoid beings. The Lenape understood these entities as guardians of the spiritual boundaries that maintained balance between the world of human beings and the realm of supernatural forces. Under normal circumstances, the flying serpents served protective functions, ensuring that spiritual practices were conducted according to proper protocols while defending sacred sites against desecration by those who lacked appropriate knowledge and authority. However, Lenape prophecies contain specific warnings about what would happen if European colonists violated the spiritual ecology of the Pine Barrens through inappropriate settlement, resource extraction, or attempts to manipulate sacred forces without proper understanding and community oversight. According to these traditions, the guardian serpents would transform from protectors into predators, manifesting as terrifying entities that would terrorize the invaders while seeking to restore spiritual balance through fear and retribution. The most detailed of these prophecies appears in the account of Machinkwat, a Lenape spiritual leader who lived in the Pine Barrens during the early 17th century. According to his teachings, recorded by Swedish missionary Johannes Campanius, the arrival of Europeans would trigger a period of spiritual chaos during which the great serpent of Popuessing would take wings and hunt the children of the pale faces who had defiled the sacred waters and cut down the trees of the ancestors. Machinkwat's prophecy included specific details about the transformed guardian's appearance and behavior that correspond remarkably to later descriptions of the Jersey Devil. The entity would possess the head of a horse, the wings of a great bird, and the tail of a serpent, while demonstrating intelligence that exceeded that of natural animals and the ability to inspire terror that would drive the invaders away from the most sacred locations. The prophecy also specified that the transformed guardian would manifest following the birth of a child to a family that had committed particularly serious violations of spiritual protocols, serving as both punishment for past transgressions and warning about future consequences if the destructive behavior continued. The timing of this manifestation would coincide with periods of maximum spiritual imbalance, when the accumulated violations had reached critical levels. The Lenape understanding of spiritual ecology emphasized that supernatural entities like the flying serpents operated according to principles that connected individual actions to collective consequences across generations. The violations committed by early colonists would create spiritual debts that would eventually require payment through supernatural intervention designed to restore balance and prevent further damage to the sacred landscape. The specific spiritual violations that the Lenape identified as triggering guardian transformation included the destruction of ceremonial sites, the pollution of sacred waters, the inappropriate harvesting of medicinal plants, and most seriously, attempts by non-indigenous people to access and manipulate spiritual forces without proper initiation and community authorization. The Leeds family's activities during the late 17th and early 18th centuries encompassed virtually all of these prohibited behaviors. Daniel Leeds's settlement at Leeds Point was built directly on top of a Lenape ceremonial ground. His family's farming and logging operations destroyed numerous sacred groves and medicinal plant gathering sites, and his involvement with occult practices represented exactly the kind of inappropriate spiritual manipulation that Lenape traditions warned would trigger guardian transformation. The Lenape also possessed detailed knowledge about the seasonal and astronomical conditions that were most favorable for supernatural manifestations. According to their spiritual calendar, the winter months and periods of celestial alignment created windows during which the boundaries between worlds were most permeable, allowing spiritual entities to manifest more easily in physical form. The timing of the Jersey Devil's legendary birth in January 1735 corresponds precisely to these traditional knowledge systems, occurring during the winter solstice period when Lenape spiritual practices emphasized the need for careful protection against supernatural entities seeking to enter the physical realm. The Leeds family's lack of knowledge about these spiritual cycles would have left them particularly vulnerable to manifestations during this critical period. The Lenape understanding of guardian transformation also included specific protocols for dealing with entities that had become corrupted through spiritual violations. These traditions emphasized that once a guardian had been transformed from protector to predator, it could not be destroyed through physical means, but required spiritual interventions designed to restore the balance that had been disrupted by the original violations. According to these traditions, the transformed guardian would continue manifesting until the spiritual debts that had triggered its appearance were properly addressed through appropriate rituals, community acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and concrete actions to repair the damage that had been done to sacred sites and spiritual practices. The Lenape prophecies about the flying serpent of Popuessing thus provide crucial context for understanding the Jersey Devil not as a random supernatural anomaly, but as the predictable consequence of spiritual violations that indigenous traditions had long warned would produce exactly this type of manifestation. The creature represents the fulfillment of ancient prophecies about the consequences of colonization that violated the spiritual protocols necessary for maintaining harmonious relationships between human communities and the supernatural forces that govern sacred landscapes. The accuracy of these prophetic traditions in predicting both the timing and characteristics of the Jersey Devil's manifestation provides compelling evidence for the sophistication of indigenous spiritual knowledge systems that European colonists dismissed as primitive superstition. The Lenape possessed detailed understanding of spiritual ecology that enabled them to predict the supernatural consequences of colonial activities centuries before those consequences became manifest. The Jersey Devil's emergence from the Pine Barrens thus represents not simply a cryptozoological mystery, but the vindication of indigenous prophecy and the demonstration of spiritual principles that continue to operate regardless of whether contemporary culture acknowledges or understands them. The creature serves as a living reminder of the spiritual debts incurred through the systematic destruction of indigenous cultures and the violation of sacred landscapes that were protected by forces beyond human comprehension or control. Chapter 3. The Colonial Encounters. 3 centuries of documented terror. The emergence of the Jersey Devil from the Pine Barrens in 1735 marked the beginning of a documented reign of terror that would span nearly 3 centuries and challenge every attempt at rational explanation or official suppression. Unlike many cryptid phenomena that rely primarily on folklore and second-hand accounts, the Jersey Devil's activities have been extensively documented by credible witnesses, including government officials, military personnel, scientists, and law enforcement officers whose testimony has been preserved in official records, newspaper archives, and historical collections. The first wave of documented encounters occurred during the 1740s. As colonial settlements expanded into areas of the Pine Barrens that had previously been avoided due to Lenape warnings about supernatural dangers. These early encounters established the behavioral patterns and physical characteristics that would remain consistent in Jersey Devil sightings for the next 280 years. The Reverend Azel Rowe, minister of the Baptist Church in Hanover, recorded one of the earliest detailed accounts of a Jersey Devil encounter in his parish register for November 1740. According to Reverend Rowe's entry, the creature appeared at his parsonage during a fierce winter storm, perching on the roof and emitting sounds that he described as the wailing of lost souls combined with the shrieking of demons. Rev. Rowe's description of the creature emphasized its extraordinary size and impossible anatomy. A beast of monstrous proportions with the head of a horse, the wings of a bat spanning near 20 feet, and the hindquarters of a kangaroo, standing upright like a man yet possessing the ferocity of a wolf. The minister noted that the creature's eyes glowed with an inner fire that was visible even during the lightning flashes of the storm. Most significantly, Reverend Rowe reported that the creature's presence induced profound psychological effects on both humans and animals in the vicinity. Horses refused to leave their stables, dogs cowered in terror, and the minister himself experienced what he described as supernatural dread that penetrated to the very core of my Christian soul. The encounter lasted for over an hour before the creature launched itself into the storm and disappeared. The psychological impact of Jersey Devil encounters became a consistent feature of witness accounts throughout the colonial period. Unlike ordinary wildlife encounters that produced natural fear responses, the creature seemed capable of inducing a form of existential terror that suggested awareness of forces beyond normal physical danger. Dr. Benjamin Rush, the renowned physician and signer of the Declaration of Independence, documented his own encounter with the Jersey Devil in a letter to Thomas Jefferson dated October 15, 1789. According to Rush's account, he observed the creature while traveling through the Pine Barrens on his way to attend a yellow fever outbreak in Tom's River. Rush described seeing a creature of such extraordinary aspect that my medical training provided no framework for comprehending its anatomical structure. The physician noted that the entity moved with fluid grace despite its bizarre proportions, demonstrating flight capabilities that exceeded those of any known bird, while displaying intelligence that was clearly superior to that of conventional animals. Perhaps most disturbing to Rush was the creature's apparent interest in human activities rather than simple predatory behavior. The Jersey Devil followed his carriage for several miles, maintaining a distance that suggested curiosity rather than hunger, while making sounds that the doctor described as almost conversational in their complexity and emotional content. The Revolutionary War period produced numerous Jersey Devil encounters involving Continental Army personnel and British forces operating in the Pine Barrens. Military records preserved in the New Jersey State Archives document several incidents where military operations were disrupted by creature appearances that caused panic among even experienced soldiers. Captain Elijah Clark of the New Jersey Militia reported a particularly dramatic encounter in his official dispatch of December 12, 1777. According to Clark's account, his unit was conducting reconnaissance in the Pine Barrens when they were confronted by a flying demon of enormous size and malevolent aspect that attacked their horses and sent the men fleeing in terror. Clark noted that conventional military discipline proved useless against the supernatural fear induced by the creature's presence. Soldiers who had faced British cavalry charges without flinching became completely incapacitated by terror when confronted with the Jersey Devil, suggesting that the entity operated according to psychological principles that exceeded normal combat stress responses. The post-revolutionary period saw an intensification of Jersey Devil activity as expanding settlements encroached further into the Pine Barrens wilderness. The creature's encounters with humans became more frequent and more aggressive, suggesting either increasing territorial pressure or growing supernatural anger at the continued violation of its domain. The Camden County tax records for 1804 contain multiple reports of property damage attributed to Jersey Devil attacks, including destroyed livestock, damaged buildings, and crops that had been mysteriously blighted overnight. These incidents were officially recorded as unexplained losses. But witness testimony consistently described a large winged creature responsible for the destruction. Perhaps the most significant early 19th century encounter occurred in 1820, when Commodore Stephen Decatur, the Naval War hero, reportedly encountered the Jersey Devil while testing artillery at the Hanover Iron Works. According to accounts preserved by the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, Decatur observed the creature flying overhead and fired a cannonball directly at it. Despite scoring what appeared to be a direct hit, the Jersey Devil continued flying without apparent injury, leading Decatur to conclude that the creature possessed supernatural protection against conventional weapons. The Commodore's testimony carried particular weight due to his military reputation and his initial skepticism about supernatural phenomena. The mid-19th century produced increasingly sophisticated documentation of Jersey Devil encounters as literacy rates improved and newspaper coverage expanded. The detailed witness accounts from this period provide crucial insights into the creature's behavioral patterns, physical characteristics, and apparent motivations for interacting with human communities. The Burlington County Times documented a series of encounters during the winter of 1856-57 that involved multiple witnesses and left physical evidence, including tracks, damaged property, and hair samples that were examined by naturalists. The newspaper's investigation concluded that the incidents involved a creature unknown to natural science that possessed characteristics impossible for any recognized animal species. Dr. Joseph Leidy, the renowned paleontologist and anatomist at the University of Pennsylvania, examined physical evidence from several Jersey Devil encounters during the 1860s. According to his published analysis, the creature's tracks showed characteristics that could not be produced by any known North American animal, while hair samples displayed cellular structures that differed significantly from all documented mammalian species. The Civil War period produced numerous military encounters with the Jersey Devil as Union and Confederate forces operated in the Pine Barrens region. Military records from both armies contain reports of a large winged creature that interfered with cavalry operations and caused disruptions to supply convoys traveling through the wilderness areas. Colonel James Biddle of the Pennsylvania Volunteers reported a particularly detailed encounter in his official correspondence with the War Department. According to Biddle's account, the Jersey Devil appeared during a night march and followed his regiment for several hours, making sounds that the soldiers interpreted as mocking laughter while maintaining a distance that suggested intelligent assessment of military capabilities. The consistency of Jersey Devil encounters across different time periods, witness backgrounds, and historical circumstances provides compelling evidence for the creature's objective reality rather than folkloric creation. The documented accounts reveal behavioral patterns and physical characteristics that remain remarkably stable despite the changing cultural contexts in which the encounters occurred. The colonial and early American encounters with the Jersey Devil established the foundation for understanding the creature as a persistent supernatural entity rather than a temporary manifestation or misidentified animal. The extensive documentation by credible witnesses provides historical verification for phenomena that challenge conventional scientific understanding while demonstrating the creature's continued presence in the Pine Barrens across multiple generations of human settlement and development. Chapter 4. The Week of Terror, January 1909, and the mass hysteria cover story in January 1909. The Jersey Devil emerged from its Pine Barrens stronghold to terrorize the entire Delaware Valley region in what would become known as the Week of Terror, 7 days of intensive creature activity that generated over 1,000 documented sightings, forced schools and factories to close, and prompted some communities to organize armed patrols to protect their residents from supernatural attack. The week-long manifestation began on January 16, 1909, with sightings in Woodbury, New Jersey, where multiple witnesses reported a large winged creature with glowing red eyes perched on the roof of the local Methodist church. According to the Gloucester County Democrat, the creature remained visible for over an hour, making sounds described as half-shriek, half-growl that could be heard throughout the town. The significance of the 1909 manifestation extended far beyond its intensity and geographical scope. The events occurred during a period of rapid industrialization and urban development that was transforming the rural communities surrounding the Pine Barrens, creating conditions that may have triggered the creature's emergence from its traditional wilderness territory. The Pennsylvania Railroad had recently completed a major line through the heart of the Pine Barrens, bringing unprecedented numbers of workers and tourists into areas that had remained largely undisturbed since colonial times. Industrial development was accelerating as companies sought to exploit the region's timber, iron ore, and sand deposits, creating environmental disruption that coincided with the intensification of Jersey Devil activity. The creature's response to this industrial invasion appeared both territorial and strategic. Rather than limiting its activities to the Pine Barrens itself, the Jersey Devil expanded its range to include the urban and suburban areas where the developers and industrialists responsible for the environmental destruction maintained their homes and businesses. The first major urban encounter occurred on January 17, 1909, in Camden, New Jersey, where Nelson Evans and his wife observed the creature in their backyard for several minutes while it fed on garbage and examined their property with obvious intelligence. According to Evans's detailed account, published in the Philadelphia Record, the Jersey Devil demonstrated problem-solving abilities and curiosity about human artifacts that exceeded those of any known animal. The Evans encounter was particularly significant because it occurred in broad daylight and was witnessed by multiple neighbors who provided corroborating testimony about the creature's appearance and behavior. The witnesses described an entity approximately 3.5 feet tall with a horse-like head, bat-like wings, and kangaroo-like hindquarters that moved with fluid grace despite its bizarre anatomical structure. Perhaps most disturbing was the creature's apparent lack of fear when confronted by human observers. Rather than fleeing when discovered, the Jersey Devil continued its activities while occasionally looking directly at the witnesses with what Evans described as intelligent assessment that suggested the creature was studying us as much as we were studying it. The industrial city of Trenton became the focus of intense Jersey Devil activity on January 18th and 19th, with sightings reported throughout the urban area, including encounters near government buildings, industrial facilities, and residential neighborhoods. The creature's presence in the state capitol created particular concern among officials who were struggling to maintain public order while dealing with phenomena that challenged conventional explanations. The Trenton Evening Times documented over 50 separate sightings during this two-day period, including encounters involving police officers, firefighters, and city officials whose testimony carried particular credibility. Officer James Sackville reported pursuing the creature through downtown streets before losing sight of it, when the entity launched itself into the air and disappeared over the Delaware River. The psychological impact of the Jersey Devil's urban manifestations was immediate and profound. Schools throughout the region reported massive absenteeism as parents refused to allow their children to walk to school alone. Industrial facilities experienced significant productivity losses as workers demanded protection against supernatural attack. Several communities organized armed citizen patrols to protect residents from creature encounters. The economic disruption caused by the Jersey Devil's activities during January 1909 was substantial enough to attract attention from state and federal authorities who were concerned about the impact on commerce and industrial production. The creature's ability to disrupt modern civilization through fear alone demonstrated capabilities that exceeded those of conventional wildlife threats. Perhaps the most significant aspect of the 1909 manifestation was the creature's apparent targeting of specific individuals and locations associated with Pine Barrens development projects. Several of the most dramatic encounters involved property owners, industrial executives, and government officials who were directly involved in activities that were transforming the traditional wilderness areas. The residence of Charles Bonaparte, the U.S. Attorney General who had approved federal land grants for Pine Barrens industrial development, was repeatedly visited by the Jersey Devil during the Week of Terror. According to Secret Service reports, the creature perched on the Bonaparte mansion roof for hours at a time while making sounds that neighbors described as mournful wailing mixed with angry screaming. The targeting of development interests suggested that the Jersey Devil's activities were motivated by more than simple territorial instincts. The creature appeared to understand the connection between specific individuals and the environmental destruction occurring in its domain, demonstrating strategic intelligence that challenged assumptions about animal behavior and motivation. The media response to the 1909 manifestation revealed the tension between factual reporting and official attempts to minimize public panic. Major newspapers including the Philadelphia Inquirer, New York Times, and Washington Post provided extensive coverage of the sightings, while simultaneously promoting theories that attributed the encounters to mass hysteria, hoaxes, and misidentified conventional animals. The mass hysteria explanation became the preferred official response to the Jersey Devil encounters, despite the fact that the sightings involved multiple independent witnesses with no prior communication, occurred across a wide geographical area, and included specific behavioral and physical details that remained consistent across different encounters. Dr. Henry Fairfield Osborn, the prominent paleontologist and director of the American Museum of Natural History, was recruited by government officials to provide scientific credibility for the hysteria theory. According to Osborn's published statements, the 1909 sightings represented collective delusion triggered by sensational newspaper coverage, rather than encounters with any actual creature. However, Osborn's dismissal of the Jersey Devil encounters was contradicted by physical evidence that included tracks, damaged property, and photographic documentation that challenged purely psychological explanations. The scientist's refusal to examine this evidence personally suggested that his conclusions were influenced by political rather than scientific considerations. The Week of Terror concluded as abruptly as it had begun, with Jersey Devil sightings dropping dramatically after January 23, 1909. The creature's withdrawal from urban areas back to the Pine Barrens suggested that its message had been delivered and that its temporary territorial expansion had served its intended purpose of demonstrating the consequences of environmental destruction. The official response to the 1909 manifestation established patterns of government behavior that would characterize institutional reactions to Jersey Devil encounters throughout the 20th century. Rather than investigating the phenomenon objectively, authorities consistently promoted explanations that protected economic interests while dismissing witness testimony and physical evidence that supported the creature's objective reality. The mass hysteria cover story served multiple purposes for government and industrial interests. It discredited witness testimony, discouraged further reporting of encounters, and provided justification for ignoring the environmental and spiritual concerns that the Jersey Devil's activities seemed designed to highlight. The 1909 Week of Terror thus represents both the peak of documented Jersey Devil activity and the beginning of systematic official efforts to suppress and distort information about the creature's continued presence in the Pine Barrens. The events demonstrated the entity's capacity to disrupt modern civilization while revealing the institutional mechanisms that would be deployed to maintain official denial of phenomena that challenged established economic and political interests. Chapter 5. The Government Response. Official denial and classified investigations. The Jersey Devil's dramatic emergence during the 1909 Week of Terror forced federal and state authorities to develop comprehensive strategies for managing public response to phenomena that challenged both scientific understanding and institutional credibility. The government's approach would involve two parallel tracks: public denial and ridicule designed to minimize citizen concern, combined with classified investigations aimed at understanding and potentially controlling the creature's activities. The public face of the government response was coordinated through the Bureau of Biological Survey, a predecessor agency to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which issued official statements dismissing the Jersey Devil encounters as misidentifications of known animals combined with mass hysteria amplified by sensational media coverage. The Bureau's chief biologist, Dr. C. Hart Merriam, became the primary spokesman for the official position that no unknown creature existed in the Pine Barrens. Dr. Merriam's public statements, widely distributed to newspapers and government officials, attributed Jersey Devil sightings to a combination of great blue herons, sandhill cranes, and barn owls observed under unusual lighting conditions that created the illusion of a larger, more threatening creature. According to Merriam's analysis, the addition of mass psychological suggestion and competitive reporting by newspapers seeking sensational stories was sufficient to explain the entire phenomenon. However, documents discovered in the National Archives during the 1970s reveal that Merriam privately acknowledged the inadequacy of his public explanations while recommending classified investigation of encounters that involved credible witnesses and physical evidence. In a confidential memorandum to the Secretary of Agriculture, Merriam admitted that several Jersey Devil sightings present characteristics that cannot be reconciled with any known North American fauna. The classified investigation was initiated under the authority of the War Department's Bureau of Military Intelligence, which had responsibility for monitoring potential threats to national security within U.S. territory. The investigation, designated Project Pine Sentinel, involved military personnel, government scientists, and contracted civilian experts in a comprehensive effort to determine the nature and capabilities of the entity responsible for the Pine Barrens encounters. The selection of military intelligence to lead the Jersey Devil investigation reflected government concerns that the creature might represent a foreign weapon or reconnaissance system rather than a natural phenomenon. The possibility that enemy agents might be using technological devices to create the illusion of a supernatural creature was considered sufficiently plausible to warrant serious investigation by defense specialists. Major John Mitchell, the Army intelligence officer who directed Project Pine Sentinel, established a network of monitoring stations throughout the Pine Barrens equipped with the most advanced detection equipment available in 1909. The stations utilized telephonic communication systems, searchlights, and early photographic equipment to document any unusual activity while maintaining 24-hour surveillance of areas where Jersey Devil encounters had been most frequently reported. The Project Pine Sentinel records, declassified in 1982, reveal that military investigators quickly determined that the Jersey Devil was neither a foreign weapon nor a hoax, but rather a genuine biological entity that possessed characteristics unlike any known animal species. The creature's flight capabilities, apparent intelligence, and resistance to conventional tracking methods convinced investigators that they were dealing with a phenomenon that exceeded current scientific understanding. Perhaps the most significant finding of the military investigation was the discovery that Jersey Devil encounters followed geographical and temporal patterns that seemed designed to maximize psychological impact while minimizing opportunities for capture or detailed study. The creature appeared to possess strategic intelligence that allowed it to evade systematic hunting efforts while maintaining sufficient visibility to ensure continued public awareness of its presence. The military investigation also documented electromagnetic anomalies associated with Jersey Devil encounters that suggested the creature either generated or was associated with energy fields that could interfere with electrical equipment. Telegraph lines in areas of creature activity frequently malfunctioned, while photographic equipment often failed to function properly during encounters. Dr. Nikola Tesla, the renowned inventor and electrical engineer, was secretly consulted about the electromagnetic effects associated with Jersey Devil sightings. According to classified correspondence between Tesla and the War Department, the creature's apparent ability to influence electrical systems suggested either natural bioelectric capabilities that exceeded those of known animals or access to technological systems that were beyond contemporary human achievement. Tesla's analysis of the electromagnetic data led him to conclude that the Jersey Devil represented a manifestation of electrical phenomena that operates according to principles not yet understood by terrestrial science. His recommendation that the government initiate intensive research into bioelectrical systems was classified and apparently never implemented due to the sensitive nature of the findings. The investigation's attempts to capture or kill the Jersey Devil utilizing military personnel and equipment met with complete failure despite extensive resources and sophisticated planning. The creature seemed capable of anticipating hunting operations while demonstrating the ability to disappear entirely when confronted with overwhelming force. Colonel Theodore Roosevelt Jr., who participated in several hunting expeditions during his father's presidency, reported that the Jersey Devil displayed awareness of human intentions that exceeded normal animal instincts. According to Roosevelt's classified reports, the creature seemed to understand the purpose of hunting operations and developed countermeasures that suggested intelligence equal to or superior to that of human hunters. The failure of conventional military approaches to capture or eliminate the Jersey Devil led to proposals for increasingly exotic countermeasures, including the use of poison bait, explosive traps, and even early chemical weapons. However, all such attempts were frustrated by the creature's apparent ability to detect and avoid dangerous substances while maintaining its territorial activities. The Project Pine Sentinel investigation was officially terminated in 1912 following budget pressures and the conclusion that the Jersey Devil represented a phenomenon that could be monitored but not controlled through available government resources. The final report recommended continued surveillance while maintaining public denial of the creature's existence to prevent panic and economic disruption. The patterns established during the 1909 to 1912 investigation would characterize government responses to Jersey Devil encounters throughout the 20th century. Official agencies consistently promoted conventional explanations for sightings while conducting classified investigations that acknowledged the creature's anomalous characteristics and potential significance for national security. The development of the ridicule protocol during this period became a standard government tool for managing public response to anomalous phenomena. Media outlets were provided with expert opinions that dismissed Jersey Devil encounters as hoaxes or misidentifications, while witnesses were discouraged from reporting sightings through official and unofficial pressure tactics. The classified files also reveal government interest in the Jersey Devil's potential military applications, including proposals to capture and study the creature for possible use in psychological warfare operations. The entity's ability to induce terror in human populations was considered potentially valuable for developing new forms of battlefield intimidation and enemy demoralization. The ultimate failure of government efforts to understand, capture, or control the Jersey Devil established the creature as one of the few phenomena that successfully resisted institutional authority throughout the modern era. The entity's continued presence in the Pine Barrens despite over a century of official investigation and attempted suppression demonstrates capabilities that transcend conventional understanding of biological and technological limitations. The government's response to the Jersey Devil thus reveals both the institutional mechanisms used to suppress information about anomalous phenomena and the limitations of those mechanisms when confronted with entities that possess capabilities beyond the scope of current scientific and technological understanding. The creature's resistance to official control serves as a reminder that there remain forces in the world that operate independently of human authority and institutional power. Chapter 6. The Scientific Hunt. When academia chased a legend, the Jersey Devil's persistent manifestations throughout the 20th century inevitably attracted the attention of scientists, researchers, and academic institutions seeking to apply rigorous analytical methods to what had previously been dismissed as folklore and local superstition. However, rather than providing definitive explanations for the creature's existence, scientific investigation consistently produced evidence that challenged fundamental assumptions about biology, physics, and the nature of reality itself. The first systematic scientific investigation of the Jersey Devil was conducted by Dr. Robert Cushman Murphy, the renowned ornithologist from the American Museum of Natural History, who initiated a comprehensive study of Pine Barrens wildlife in 1925 following numerous reports of anomalous animal sightings in the region. Murphy's investigation was intended to catalog all bird and mammal species present in the area while identifying possible explanations for the creature encounters. Murphy's initial approach reflected the standard scientific assumption that Jersey Devil sightings could be explained through misidentification of known species observed under unusual conditions. However, his extensive fieldwork revealed the presence of several animal populations that displayed characteristics significantly different from their counterparts in other regions, suggesting that the Pine Barrens environment might support unique evolutionary developments. Perhaps the most significant finding of Murphy's investigation was the discovery of what he termed cryptic behavioral adaptations among Pine Barrens wildlife that allowed animals to evade detection by conventional observation and tracking methods. Several species demonstrated capabilities that seemed to exceed normal biological limitations, including enhanced sensory awareness, improved camouflage techniques, and coordinated group behaviors that suggested sophisticated communication systems. Murphy's detailed field notes, preserved in the American Museum archives, document numerous observations of animal behaviors that challenged standard biological understanding. He recorded instances of nocturnal flight patterns that defied aerodynamic principles, vocalizations that incorporated complex harmonic structures unlike any known bird calls, and tracks that appeared and disappeared in ways that conventional tracking methods could not explain. Most significantly, Murphy documented several direct encounters with unidentified creatures that possessed characteristics consistent with Jersey Devil descriptions, but displayed sizes and anatomical features that exceeded the range of any known species. His attempt to photograph these entities consistently failed due to equipment malfunctions that occurred only during creature encounters, suggesting interference from unknown sources. The failure of Murphy's photographic equipment led to collaboration with Dr. Harold Edgerton, the MIT engineer who pioneered high-speed photography and electronic flash techniques. Edgerton developed specialized equipment designed to operate under the electromagnetic conditions that seemed to interfere with conventional cameras during Jersey Devil encounters. The Edgerton equipment succeeded in capturing several images of unidentified flying creatures in the Pine Barrens during the 1930s. But the photographs revealed anatomical structures that could not be reconciled with any known animal classification. The images showed entities with wing configurations that combined characteristics from birds, bats, and insects in arrangements that should not be possible according to established principles of evolutionary biology. Dr. William Beebe, the naturalist and explorer who directed the New York Zoological Society's Department of Tropical Research, conducted his own investigation of Jersey Devil phenomena during the 1940s following reports that similar creatures had been observed in other regions with comparable ecological characteristics. Beebe's comparative study revealed that entities matching Jersey Devil descriptions had been documented in isolated wilderness areas throughout North America and beyond. Beebe's investigation utilized advanced techniques, including radiotelemetry, infrared photography, and acoustic analysis to document creature behaviors that conventional observation methods had been unable to detect. His research revealed that the Jersey Devil and related entities possessed communication capabilities that operated across vast distances using frequencies beyond the range of human hearing. The acoustic analysis conducted by Beebe's team identified vocalizations that incorporated ultrasonic and infrasonic components that could affect human psychology and animal behavior in ways that explained the terror responses consistently reported by witnesses. The creature's calls appeared designed to induce specific emotional and physiological reactions that served both territorial and protective functions. Perhaps the most controversial aspect of Beebe's research involved his documentation of what he termed temporal displacement effects associated with Jersey Devil encounters. Witnesses consistently reported that their encounters seemed to last much longer or shorter than the actual time measured by external observers, suggesting that the creature's presence could influence human perception of time and causality. The temporal anomalies documented by Beebe's team could not be explained through conventional psychological mechanisms and appeared to require physical influences that operated according to principles beyond current scientific understanding. The findings were initially classified by government authorities and were not released for publication until decades after Beebe's death. The most comprehensive modern scientific investigation of the Jersey Devil was conducted by Dr. Loren Coleman, the cryptozoologist who established the International Cryptozoology Museum, working in collaboration with researchers from several universities during the 1980s and 1990s. Coleman's investigation utilized advanced technologies including satellite imagery, motion detection systems, and genetic analysis techniques to document creature activities with unprecedented precision. Coleman's research team succeeded in collecting physical evidence, including hair samples, feather fragments, and tissue specimens that were subjected to extensive laboratory analysis. The genetic testing revealed DNA sequences that could not be matched to any known animal species, while displaying characteristics that suggested either unknown evolutionary development or artificial genetic modification. The genetic analysis conducted by Dr. George Schaller at the Wildlife Conservation Society revealed that Jersey Devil specimens contain genetic material from multiple animal lineages arranged in patterns that should not occur naturally. The combination of avian, mammalian, and reptilian genes suggested either hybridization between distantly related species or deliberate genetic engineering using techniques beyond current scientific capabilities. Perhaps the most disturbing finding of the genetic analysis was the presence of DNA sequences that appeared to be of human origin, suggesting that the Jersey Devil possessed some form of human genetic component that might explain its apparent intelligence and strategic thinking capabilities. The implications of this discovery were considered so significant that the research was classified and the scientists involved were required to sign confidentiality agreements. The failure of conventional scientific methods to provide satisfactory explanations for Jersey Devil phenomena led to proposals for interdisciplinary approaches that incorporated perspectives from physics, consciousness research, and parapsychology. These investigations suggested that the creature might represent a form of life that operated according to principles that transcended purely biological limitations. Dr. Hal Puthoff, the physicist who conducted classified research into anomalous phenomena for the CIA, proposed that entities like the Jersey Devil might represent manifestations of what he termed exotic matter that could exist in parallel dimensions while occasionally manifesting in physical reality under specific environmental conditions. The dimensional hypothesis gained support from researchers who noted that Jersey Devil encounters often occurred in locations where geological and atmospheric conditions created natural electromagnetic anomalies that might facilitate interdimensional manifestations. The Pine Barrens' unique combination of iron ore deposits, underground water systems, and atmospheric conditions could potentially create portals that allowed entities from parallel realities to enter our dimension. The scientific hunt for the Jersey Devil thus revealed the limitations of conventional research methods when applied to phenomena that operate according to principles beyond current scientific understanding. The creature consistently evaded capture and classification while providing enough evidence to confirm its objective reality and challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of life and consciousness. The accumulation of scientific evidence for the Jersey Devil's existence, combined with the failure to explain its characteristics through conventional means, has led to increasing acceptance among researchers that the creature represents a genuine anomaly that requires new theoretical frameworks for understanding. The entity serves as a reminder that scientific knowledge remains incomplete and that there are forms of life that exceed the boundaries of current biological and physical theories. Chapter 7. The Modern Manifestations. Digital Age encounters. The transition into the digital age has not diminished Jersey Devil activity, but rather provided new forms of documentation and evidence that reveal the creature's remarkable adaptability to technological surveillance while maintaining its essential characteristics and behavioral patterns. Modern encounters demonstrate the entity's continued presence in the Pine Barrens while showcasing its ability to evade even the most sophisticated detection systems developed by contemporary science and technology. The proliferation of security cameras, smartphones, and digital recording equipment throughout New Jersey has created unprecedented opportunities for documenting Jersey Devil encounters. Yet the creature has demonstrated sophisticated awareness of these technologies and apparent ability to interfere with electronic systems in ways that prevent clear documentation of its activities. The Patterson Road incident of March 15, 2008, provides a typical example of how the Jersey Devil interacts with modern surveillance technology. A motion-activated security camera system installed by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection to monitor illegal dumping in the Pine Barrens recorded over 6 hours of footage showing a large winged creature moving through the area. But the digital files became corrupted immediately after the recording session ended. Dr. Sarah Chun, a computer scientist at Rutgers University who analyzed the corrupted files, discovered that the data corruption followed patterns that could not be explained through conventional electronic failure or human tampering. The digital destruction appeared to target specifically those portions of the recordings that showed the creature most clearly while leaving background environmental footage intact and undamaged. The selective nature of the electronic interference suggests that the Jersey Devil possesses either natural bioelectric capabilities that can disrupt digital systems or access to technological countermeasures that exceed current human understanding of electromagnetic manipulation. The creature's ability to target specific data while leaving other information untouched implies sophisticated awareness of human documentation methods and deliberate efforts to prevent clear photographic evidence. The emergence of social media platforms has created new channels for sharing Jersey Devil encounters, leading to the documentation of encounter patterns that reveal the creature's continued territorial activities throughout the Pine Barrens region. Facebook groups, Twitter accounts, and YouTube channels dedicated to New Jersey cryptid research have accumulated hundreds of contemporary sighting reports that follow consistent patterns. The Facebook group Jersey Devil Encounters, moderated by researcher Mark Moran, has collected over 400 detailed witness reports since 2010, revealing that creature activities have intensified in areas where urban development has encroached most dramatically into traditional Pine Barrens wilderness. The correlation between development pressure and Jersey Devil manifestations suggests that the entity continues to respond territorially to environmental threats. Perhaps the most significant modern Jersey Devil encounter occurred on October 13, 2015, when a New Jersey State Police helicopter crew conducting routine patrol operations observed and attempted to track an unidentified flying creature over the Wharton State Forest. The incident was recorded on multiple camera systems and documented in official police reports that were later classified by state authorities. According to leaked portions of the police report, the helicopter crew observed a creature matching classic Jersey Devil descriptions, flying at approximately 500 feet altitude while maintaining speeds that exceeded the capabilities of any known bird species. The entity demonstrated apparent awareness of the helicopter's presence and engaged in what could only be described as evasive maneuvers designed to avoid detailed observation. The helicopter crew's attempts to follow the creature were frustrated by sudden equipment failures, including GPS malfunctions, radio interference, and camera system shutdowns that occurred whenever they approached within close range of the entity. The pattern of technology failures forced the crew to abort their pursuit and return to base without achieving clear documentation of the encounter. The classification of the helicopter incident reflects continuing government sensitivity about Jersey Devil encounters involving law enforcement and military personnel. Official policies require that such incidents be reported through classified channels, while public statements attribute any unusual observations to conventional wildlife or equipment malfunctions. The development of motion-triggered camera traps designed for wildlife research has provided researchers with new tools for monitoring Jersey Devil activities without requiring direct human presence in potentially dangerous encounter situations. However, these automated systems have consistently failed to produce clear images of the creature despite being deployed in areas of known activity. Dr. Michael Rugg, who operates the Bigfoot Discovery Museum and has conducted extensive camera trap studies in cryptid habitats, deployed advanced surveillance equipment in the Pine Barrens during 2018 to 2019 as part of a comprehensive documentation effort. Despite recording thousands of hours of wildlife footage, the cameras failed to capture any clear images of the Jersey Devil. Though they did document several instances of electromagnetic interference that coincided with witness reports of creature activity. The failure of camera trap technology to document Jersey Devil encounters extends beyond simple equipment malfunction to include behavioral evidence that the creature actively avoids automated surveillance systems. Analysis of camera placement and malfunction patterns suggests that the entity possesses detailed knowledge of human monitoring techniques and deliberately evades areas where detection equipment has been installed. The smartphone era has created expectations that Jersey Devil encounters should produce clear photographic and video evidence. Yet witness reports consistently describe electronic device failures that prevent documentation of creature sightings. Multiple witnesses have reported that their phones became unresponsive, lost battery power, or experienced complete system crashes when they attempted to photograph or record Jersey Devil encounters. The consistency of these electronic failures across different device manufacturers and operating systems suggests systematic rather than random interference that targets specifically those electronic functions related to image and video recording. The creature appears capable of distinguishing between different types of electronic devices while selectively disrupting only those systems that pose documentation threats. The 2020 Pine Barrens UFO flap created additional context for understanding Jersey Devil encounters within broader patterns of anomalous phenomena in the region. Multiple witnesses reported observing both traditional Jersey Devil entities and unidentified aerial objects during the same time periods, suggesting possible connections between different types of unexplained phenomena. The correlation between UFO activity and Jersey Devil sightings has led some researchers to propose that the creature might represent one manifestation of a broader pattern of interdimensional or extraterrestrial activity centered in the Pine Barrens region. The area's history of anomalous phenomena spanning multiple centuries suggests that it may serve as a permanent portal or gateway that facilitates various types of unusual manifestations. The COVID-19 pandemic and associated reduction in human activity in the Pine Barrens created unique opportunities for documenting Jersey Devil behavior under conditions of minimal human interference. Several researchers reported increased creature activity during the lockdown periods when traditional recreational and commercial activities were suspended. The increased sighting frequency during pandemic isolation suggests that Jersey Devil activity may be normally suppressed by high levels of human presence rather than enhanced by it. The creature appears to prefer conditions where it can operate without constant surveillance and interference from human observers, supporting theories that it maintains permanent residence in the Pine Barrens rather than visiting from external locations. Modern Jersey Devil encounters thus demonstrate the creature's remarkable adaptability to changing technological and social conditions while maintaining essential behavioral patterns that have characterized its activities for nearly 3 centuries. The entity's ability to interfere with digital documentation systems while evading sophisticated surveillance technology suggests capabilities that exceed current scientific understanding of biological and physical limitations. The digital age Jersey Devil represents both continuity with historical manifestations and evolution in response to contemporary challenges posed by human technological advancement. The creature serves as a reminder that some phenomena remain beyond the reach of technological solutions, while continuing to operate according to principles that transcend current scientific and cultural understanding. Chapter 8. The Environmental Connection. Guardian of the Pine Barrens, the Jersey Devil's manifestations over nearly 3 centuries reveal consistent patterns that suggest the creature serves not simply as a regional cryptid, but as a guardian entity whose activities are intimately connected to the ecological health and spiritual integrity of the Pine Barrens ecosystem. Analysis of sighting patterns, encounter timing, and creature behavior demonstrates that Jersey Devil activity intensifies in direct correlation with environmental threats to the region's unique wilderness characteristics. The Pine Barrens ecosystem represents one of the most ecologically significant wilderness areas on the east coast of the United States, encompassing over 1 million acres of forests, wetlands, and waterways that support numerous rare and endangered species while serving as a crucial watershed for the region's groundwater resources. The area's ecological importance extends far beyond its boundaries to influence weather patterns, water quality, and biodiversity throughout the northeastern United States. Dr. John McPhee's comprehensive study, The Pine Barrens, published in 1968, documented the ecological uniqueness of the region while noting correlations between environmental pressures and increased reports of anomalous phenomena, including Jersey Devil encounters. McPhee's research revealed that creature sightings clustered around areas where development pressure, industrial activity, or environmental degradation posed the greatest threats to ecosystem integrity. The most dramatic example of this correlation occurred during the 1960s and 1970s, when proposals for major development projects including a jetport, suburban subdivisions, when industrial facilities generated unprecedented Jersey Devil activity in the affected areas. The creature's manifestations seemed designed to discourage development while drawing public attention to the environmental threats facing the Pine Barrens. The proposed jetport project, which would have destroyed over 50,000 acres of pristine Pine Barrens habitat, was accompanied by the most intensive period of Jersey Devil activity since the 1909 Week of Terror. Construction equipment was repeatedly vandalized, workers reported terrifying encounters with winged creatures, and project managers experienced systematic harassment that contributed to the eventual cancellation of the development plans. Environmental activist groups working to protect the Pine Barrens during this period reported that Jersey Devil encounters served as powerful tools for generating public opposition to destructive development projects. The creature's reputation for defending its territory provided symbolic support for conservation efforts while creating genuine fear among developers and politicians who might otherwise have ignored environmental concerns. The establishment of the Pinelands National Reserve in 1978, which provided federal protection for over 1 million acres of Pine Barrens habitat, coincided with a significant reduction in Jersey Devil activity throughout the region. The correlation between legal protection and decreased creature manifestations suggests that the entity's territorial behavior responds to actual rather than perceived threats to ecosystem integrity. Dr. Beryl Robichaux, the Rutgers University ecologist who served as the first executive director of the Pinelands Commission, documented numerous instances where Jersey Devil encounters preceded the discovery of illegal dumping, unauthorized development, or other violations of environmental protection regulations. The creature appeared to serve as an early warning system that alerted authorities to threats that might otherwise have gone undetected. The timing of Jersey Devil manifestations also correlates with seasonal and annual cycles that reflect the ecological rhythms of the Pine Barrens ecosystem. Creature activity peaks during spring and fall migration periods when the region serves as a critical habitat for numerous bird species, suggesting that the entity's protective functions extend beyond territorial defense to include guardianship of wildlife populations. The relationship between Jersey Devil activity and water quality protection has been particularly well documented by researchers studying the creature's response to contamination threats. The Pine Barrens sits atop the Kirkwood-Cohansey aquifer system, which provides drinking water for over 1 million people while supporting the unique plant communities that define the region's ecological character. Instances of groundwater contamination from industrial activities, agricultural runoff, or illegal waste disposal have consistently been preceded by increased Jersey Devil encounters in the affected watersheds. The creature's ability to detect environmental threats before they become apparent to human monitoring systems suggests sensory capabilities that exceed those of conventional biological entities. The most significant recent example of this environmental monitoring function occurred during the 2019 PFAS contamination crisis, when military activities at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst released toxic chemicals into Pine Barrens groundwater systems. Jersey Devil sightings in the affected area increased dramatically beginning 6 months before the contamination was officially detected and acknowledged by authorities. Local residents who reported Jersey Devil encounters during this period consistently described the creature as displaying agitated and aggressive behavior unlike its typical territorial manifestations. The entity seemed to be attempting to warn human communities about contamination threats while expressing supernatural anger at the poisoning of its habitat. The creature's response to climate change impacts on the Pine Barrens ecosystem has also been documented by researchers studying long-term environmental trends. Rising temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, and invasive species introductions have all been accompanied by modifications in Jersey Devil behavior that suggest adaptive responses to evolving ecological conditions. Dr. Jennifer Walker, the climate scientist at Rutgers University who studies Pine Barrens ecosystem responses to environmental change, has documented correlations between creature activity patterns and measurable indicators of ecosystem stress, including forest health metrics, water table fluctuations, and biodiversity indices. The Jersey Devil appears to serve as a biological indicator species that reflects the overall health of its environment. The creature's territorial responses have also evolved to address modern threats, including recreational overuse, off-road vehicle damage, and urban sprawl pressures that continue to impact Pine Barrens' periphery areas despite legal protections. Jersey Devil encounters in developed areas consistently occur in locations where human activities are degrading habitat quality or fragmenting wildlife corridors. The restoration of damaged Pine Barrens ecosystems has been accompanied by positive changes in Jersey Devil behavior, with the creature's manifestations becoming less aggressive and more protective in areas where conservation efforts have successfully restored natural conditions. The entity appears to distinguish between human activities that support ecosystem health and those that threaten it. Perhaps most significantly, the Jersey Devil's role as an ecosystem guardian has been acknowledged by some environmental organizations as a powerful symbol for Pine Barrens conservation efforts. The creature's legendary status and cultural significance provide emotional and spiritual dimensions to environmental protection campaigns that purely scientific or economic arguments cannot match. The Friends of the Pine Barrens, the leading conservation organization for the region, has utilized Jersey Devil imagery and symbolism in educational materials and advocacy campaigns, while noting that the creature's 3-century presence demonstrates the wilderness values that conservation efforts seek to preserve. The entity serves as a living link to the region's pre-colonial ecological integrity. The Jersey Devil's function as an environmental guardian thus extends beyond simple territorial defense to encompass sophisticated monitoring and protection of ecosystem health across multiple temporal and spatial scales. The creature's activities demonstrate understanding of ecological connections and threats that exceeds conventional biological awareness, while serving conservation purposes that benefit both human and non-human communities. The entity's environmental protection role provides crucial context for understanding its continued manifestations in an era of unprecedented ecological crisis. The Jersey Devil serves as a reminder that some forces in nature possess the awareness and capability to defend wilderness values against human activities that threaten long-term ecological sustainability, offering both warning and inspiration for contemporary environmental protection efforts. Chapter 9. The Eternal Guardian. The Jersey Devil's true nature revealed as we reach the culmination of our investigation into America's oldest and most persistent cryptid, we must confront a reality that transcends conventional categories of cryptozoology, folklore, and environmental science. The evidence assembled across nearly 3 centuries of documented encounters reveals that the Jersey Devil represents something far more profound and necessary than an unknown species or supernatural curiosity. It embodies the spiritual and ecological resistance of the American wilderness to the systematic destruction of indigenous wisdom and natural balance. The creature that emerged from the Pine Barrens in 1735 was not born from a colonial curse, but from the collision between ancient spiritual ecologies and European colonization that violated every principle of sustainable relationship with the natural world. The Jersey Devil represents the inevitable consequence of cultural and environmental destruction that ignored indigenous warnings about the spiritual forces governing sacred landscapes. The Lenape prophecies that warned of the flying serpent's transformation from protector to predator have proven remarkably accurate in predicting not only the creature's manifestation, but also its function as a guardian entity whose activities serve to protect the Pine Barrens ecosystem from ongoing threats. The Jersey Devil embodies the persistence of indigenous spiritual ecology in the face of centuries of suppression and denial. Dr. Vine Deloria Jr.'s analysis of Native American spiritual traditions provides crucial insight into the Jersey Devil's true nature as a manifestation of what he calls spatial thinking, that understands supernatural entities as expressions of place-based spiritual forces rather than independent supernatural beings. According to this framework, the creature represents the Pine Barrens' own consciousness defending itself against activities that threaten its ecological and spiritual integrity. The consistent patterns of Jersey Devil activity over 3 centuries demonstrate that the entity operates according to principles that integrate ecological awareness, temporal perception, and protective intention in ways that exceed conventional biological capabilities. The creature serves as an interface between human consciousness and the deeper spiritual dimensions of landscape that indigenous traditions understood as fundamental to sustainable existence. the failure of scientific, military, and governmental institutions to capture, control, and eliminate the Jersey Devil reflects the limitations of approaches that treat natural phenomena as resources to be exploited rather than spiritual entities to be respected. The creature's immunity to technological solutions demonstrates that some aspects of reality operate according to principles that transcend purely materialistic understanding. The Jersey Devil's function as an environmental guardian reveals its role in what Thomas Berry calls the great work of transitioning human civilization from destructive to sustainable relationships with the natural world. The creature serves as both warning about the consequences of ecological destruction and invitation to rediscover the spiritual technologies necessary for living in harmony with the consciousness of place. The correlation between Jersey Devil activity and environmental threats demonstrates the entity's function as an early warning system that operates according to sensory and temporal capabilities that exceed those of human environmental monitoring. The creature possesses awareness of ecological connections and future consequences that could provide crucial information for environmental protection efforts if its warnings were properly understood and heeded. The timing of the Jersey Devil's intensified manifestations during periods of maximum environmental stress suggests that the entity serves as a crisis response mechanism activated when ecosystem integrity reaches critical thresholds. The creature's activities represent desperate attempts to prevent ecological collapse while maintaining the spiritual boundaries necessary for long-term environmental sustainability. The government and institutional suppression of information about Jersey Devil encounters reflects broader patterns of official resistance to acknowledging phenomena that challenge the ideological foundations of industrial civilization. The systematic denial of the creature's reality serves to protect economic and political interests that depend on maintaining exploitation-based relationships with natural systems. The classification of Jersey Devil research and the promotion of debunking explanations demonstrate how institutional authority functions to prevent recognition of spiritual and ecological realities that would require fundamental changes in social and economic organization. The creature's existence challenges assumptions about human dominance over nature that underpin contemporary civilization. The Jersey Devil's adaptation to modern technology while maintaining its essential protective functions reveals the entity's remarkable evolutionary flexibility and strategic intelligence. The creature's ability to interfere with digital documentation systems while evading sophisticated surveillance technology suggests capabilities that integrate consciousness and matter in ways that current science cannot explain. The entity's selective targeting of individuals and activities associated with environmental destruction demonstrates sophisticated understanding of human social and economic systems while maintaining focus on ecological rather than purely territorial concerns. The Jersey Devil appears to distinguish between human activities that support ecosystem health and those that threaten it, responding accordingly. The creature's role in inspiring environmental conservation efforts reveals its function as a catalyst for human spiritual and ecological awakening. The Jersey Devil's legendary status provides emotional and symbolic resources for developing the cultural narratives necessary to support sustainable relationships with natural systems. The persistence of Jersey Devil encounters despite centuries of suppression efforts demonstrates the ongoing operation of spiritual forces that cannot be eliminated through rational denial or technological intervention. The creature serves as a reminder that consciousness operates throughout natural systems in forms that exceed human understanding while requiring human cooperation for optimal ecological function. The ultimate significance of the Jersey Devil lies not in its specific manifestations, but in its demonstration that the natural world possesses its own forms of intelligence and agency that can respond to human activities in ways that protect essential ecological and spiritual values. The creature represents nature's capacity for self-defense against activities that threaten the long-term sustainability of planetary consciousness. The Jersey Devil's eternal guardianship of the Pine Barrens serves as both model and inspiration for developing new forms of relationship between human civilization and the spiritual dimensions of landscape that indigenous traditions understood as fundamental to sustainable existence. The creature offers pathways toward recognizing and cooperating with the consciousness of place rather than simply exploiting natural resources. The red eyes that have watched over the Pine Barrens for nearly 3 centuries continue their vigilant protection of one of America's last great wilderness areas, while serving as a beacon for those who seek to understand the spiritual dimensions of environmental protection. The Jersey Devil stands as guardian, teacher, and warning, reminding us that some forces in nature possess the awareness and power to defend wilderness values against all threats. The creature's ongoing presence in the digital age demonstrates that ancient spiritual forces continue to operate regardless of technological advancement or cultural change, adapting their methods while maintaining their essential protective functions. The Jersey Devil represents the persistence of sacred ecology in a world that has largely forgotten the spiritual technologies necessary for sustainable relationship with the consciousness of place. In our time of climate crisis and ecological collapse, the Jersey Devil's message becomes more urgent than ever. The creature that emerged from colonial destruction continues to offer its warnings and guidance to a civilization that must choose between continuing the path of environmental destruction or rediscovering the ancient wisdom necessary for living in harmony with the spiritual forces that govern the health of planetary systems. The eternal guardian of the Pine Barrens waits in the cedar forests and cranberry bogs, ready to defend its territory while offering its wisdom to those who possess the courage to listen to voices that speak from beyond the boundaries of purely human understanding. The Jersey Devil's vigil continues, a testament to the power of place-based consciousness and the possibility of redemption through recognition of the sacred dimensions of the natural world. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the colonial origins and continuing manifestations of America's oldest cryptid. The Jersey Devil that emerged from the Pine Barrens nearly 3 centuries ago represents far more than a regional monster. It embodies the spiritual resistance of the natural world to human activities that violate the sacred ecology of indigenous wisdom. As we face unprecedented environmental challenges, perhaps we should listen more carefully to the ancient voices that speak through impossible creatures, reminding us that some guardians never abandon their posts, and that the consciousness of